For more than a decade, people around the world watched in silence as one of Hollywood's most famous fathers slowly drifted away from his only daughter. That quiet distance didn't happen overnight, and now the truth behind it feels way heavier than anyone expected. What stayed hidden for years is finally cracking wide open. Suri Knoll, once known publicly as Suri Cruise, grew up under a spotlight she never asked for. She didn't choose the name, didn't chase the fame, yet the whole world recognized her even when she wished they wouldn't. Born famous, raised behind closed doors, and separated from her father by forces way bigger than a young person could ever understand. Now at 19, she's not giving interviews or dropping statements. Instead, she's speaking loud through her choices, her distance, and the life she's quietly building for herself. And those choices have shocked people who still remember that once perfect family smiling together on red carpets, cameras flashing nonstop. This isn't a fairy tale ending. This is the real story of a daughter who grew up watching her father from afar, and a father who slowly watched his place in her daily life fade out piece by piece while the world kept watching. It all started like a movie script. Back in 2005, when Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes crossed paths, headlines exploded before the relationship even had time to breathe. Katie was just 26, glowing from her Dawson's Creek success, a rising actress with soft charm and big dream energy. Tom, already 43, was a global icon carrying blockbuster weight on his shoulders with films like Top Gun, Jerry Maguire, and Mission Impossible. His name alone could pack theaters worldwide. For Katie, this wasn't just another Hollywood crush. Years earlier, she had told 17 magazine that her dream was to marry Tom Cruise. It sounded innocent, almost unreal, like something said without expecting it to ever come true. But when Tom first saw her, he reportedly told his team, "I'm going to marry her." And from that moment, everything moved at lightning speed. Within weeks, the impossible felt real, and their chemistry took over, like it had a mind of its own. Cameras caught them holding hands in Rome, laughing like they were in their own bubble, not caring who was watching. Even the usually private Tom looked completely swept up, moving off pure emotion instead of calculation. Then came the moment that made the whole world gasp. His appearance on the Oprah Winfrey Show, where he jumped on the couch and shouted, "I'm in love!" People couldn't believe what they were seeing. Some thought it was sweet, others thought it was strange, but nobody could look away. On April 18, 2006, their daughter was born, a child who instantly became the symbol of their whirlwind romance. Tom called it the happiest day of his life and described her as a miracle. But even that moment was shaped by the belief system guiding his world, including Scientology, setting the stage for everything that came next. Katie, who grew up as a Catholic school kid from Toledo, suddenly found herself navigating a reality that felt completely unfamiliar. Her pregnancy and Suri's birth followed Scientology traditions, including a silent birth, where no one in the room was allowed to speak during delivery. Even the air felt controlled, intentional, and intense. Tom took things even further. He reportedly bought his own sonogram machine so he could track the pregnancy from home, staying constantly involved and deeply focused. To outsiders, it felt unusual, even overwhelming, but to Tom Cruise, this was love, devotion, and total commitment. Their wedding that November looked like a royal fantasy ripped straight from a history book. Set at a 15th century castle in Italy, with a reported price tag of over $3 million, the spectacle screamed grandeur. Katie Holmes wore custom Giorgio Armani, looking like a movie dream come alive. Tom was glowing with pride. The guest list was stacked with power names like Jennifer Lopez, Will Smith, and the Beckhams, turning the ceremony into a global headline. Cameras flashed nonstop, smiles frozen in place. But behind those glamorous grins, Katie's parents felt uneasy. As lifelong Catholics, Martin and Kathleen Holmes were deeply concerned about the world now surrounding their daughter and granddaughter. And just like they feared, the fairy tale shine didn't last nearly as long as it looked. The lifestyle around Katie became more controlled, more private, and deeply shaped by belief, secrecy, and power. For Tom, everything he did came from conviction and love. For Katie, that same environment slowly started to feel isolating, closing in instead of opening up. And for Suri, this marked the beginning of a childhood that would never resemble anything close to ordinary. No normal routines, no carefree moments, just layers of protection, structure, and distance wrapped around her from the start. By 2007, Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes looked untouchable from the outside. Red carpets, private jets, magazine covers, all of it screamed perfection. But behind closed doors, cracks were forming quietly, and the world had no idea what was coming next. They appeared flawless. The superstar actor, his glowing wife, and their picture-perfect daughter. Yet behind the polished image, something was shifting, even if cameras couldn't catch it. Friends noticed subtle changes that felt hard to explain. Katie rarely went anywhere alone. Anytime she stepped out, someone from Tom's close circle, often tied to Scientology, was right there, moving like quiet shadows beside her. It wasn't loud or obvious, just constant and watchful. Even during simple outings, calm, observant faces tracked her every move. One night at dinner, journalist Maureen Orth noticed tension when fans approached their table. Katie smiled politely, then said something that made Orth freeze. "Oh, we don't go outside very much." It sounded casual, almost harmless. But to people familiar with strict systems of control, it spoke volumes. Meanwhile, Tom remained the same intense force, confident, charming, and fiercely loyal to his beliefs. He had become one of Scientology's strongest public figures, openly promoting the organization and defending it without hesitation. For him, it wasn't just belief, it was structure, discipline, and purpose. But for Katie, those same walls felt like lines she could never safely cross. Her parents watched from the outside with growing concern, worried that love, faith, and control were colliding in ways that couldn't stay hidden forever. They had always been uneasy about the secretive structure surrounding their daughter's new life. Over time, visits became less frequent, conversations shorter, and the distance grew heavier. Friends said Katie felt harder to reach, like there was always something unspoken hanging in the air. Those close to her noticed a shift. She started sounding rehearsed, repeating the same lines about Tom again and again. "He's amazing! He's wonderful!" she'd say, almost like she was trying to convince herself more than anyone else. The bright spark that once made Katie Holmes stand out began to fade. Meanwhile, Tom Cruise's adopted children with Nicole Kidman, Bella Cruz, and Connor Cruz were already deeply rooted in Scientology. For Tom, it felt natural that his youngest child would grow up within the same belief system. But Katie wasn't ready to surrender that level of control over her daughter's future, especially when she felt she didn't fully understand the system shaping it. So she started pulling back, slowly and carefully. No sudden moves, no loud resistance, just quiet steps, measured distance, and guarded decisions designed not to raise alarms. By 2010, rumors spread that she felt boxed in. She skipped certain church-related events, reconnected with old friends, and spent more time in New York, away from Tom's daily routine. This wasn't drifting. This was preparation. Behind the scenes, Katie was gathering information, weighing options, and planning every detail. She knew one mistake could cost her everything. Every move had to be clean, legal, and precise. By 2011, the cracks were impossible to hide. Her smiles looked tighter, her steps more cautious, and the fairy tale image started slipping. And every time she held her daughter's hand a little tighter, she was already building an exit plan. Then came June 29th, 2012, the day Hollywood froze. News broke that Katie Holmes had filed for divorce from Tom Cruise just days before his 50th birthday. This wasn't impulsive. This was strategy, protection, and survival. Tom later admitted he never saw it coming. "It hit me hard," he said softly. "Life can do that to you." What he didn't know was that Katie had spent months preparing like someone who knew she was being watched. She changed phones, hired new security, replaced staff she feared were reporting back to church insiders. Every move was planned like a covert mission, quiet but deliberate. Her father, Martin Holmes, a lawyer known for sharp strategy, became her silent architect. He had helped write the prenup years earlier and now used it to carve out her escape route with precision. Katie chose New York as her legal battlefield. She knew the state's custody laws favored the parent protecting a child's long-term stability. Everything was filed in total secrecy, airtight and calculated. While Tom was in Iceland filming, he learned about the divorce the same way the rest of the world did, through headlines. For a man used to controlling every detail, this was a brutal shock. Court documents later revealed her motive clearly: protection. Katie wanted full custody, full control over education, medical decisions, and spiritual direction. Her concern wasn't Tom alone, but the powerful system surrounding him. Former Scientologists later claimed Katie feared her daughter could one day be pushed toward the organization's strict internal programs as she grew older. That fear reshaped everything and forced a move that changed Hollywood forever, and that was a future she refused to gamble with. The legal battle ended almost as fast as it started. In just 11 days, everything was finalized, fast, clean, and airtight. Tom Cruise agreed to pay roughly $400,000 a year in child support until adulthood, plus health insurance and education costs. But money was never the goal, not even close. What Katie Holmes wanted was separation, legal separation, physical separation, and spiritual separation. Clean lines, no overlap, no confusion, no control. The very next day after the settlement, Katie and her daughter vanished from Los Angeles like smoke in the wind. No announcements, no statements, no explanations. When photographers finally spotted them, they were walking through Chelsea in New York City, hand in hand, no guards, no handlers, no shadows. Katie looked exhausted, worn down from years of pressure. But something was different. She looked lighter, calmer, and finally free. She even smiled a real smile, the kind people hadn't seen from her in years, especially when she looked at her daughter. That new life came with distance. Real distance. The father who once carried his child down red carpets and called her his miracle was suddenly gone. Not through anger, not through a public fight, just absence, quiet and final. And in that silence, a new chapter began. One that neither Hollywood nor any powerful organization could shape or control. After the divorce, Tom's world and his daughter's world split into two completely separate paths. In 2013, Tom gave a rare deposition during a lawsuit, and lawyers asked the question everyone was thinking. Had Katie left to protect her daughter from Scientology? Tom pushed back, calling the question offensive. But then he admitted it was true as one of the assertions, the closest he ever came to acknowledging the real divide. That same year, reports claimed Tom had seen his daughter only once after the divorce, during a brief private meeting. After that, there were no photos, no confirmed visits, nothing at all. Complete silence. In the years that followed, Tom threw himself deeper into his career, non-stop. Mission: Impossible Films, the long-awaited Top Gun sequel, global press tours, stunts so extreme they seemed unreal. Fans cheered every leap, every climb, every risk. But far from those bright lights, his daughter was growing up without him. Meanwhile, Katie rebuilt a steady, grounded life for her child in New York City. She enrolled her in a private Manhattan school, took her to local parks, small cafes, dance classes, and quiet routines. Friends said she was bright, warm, and surprisingly down to earth, raised far from Hollywood chaos. For someone born into celebrity chaos, Katie made one thing clear from the start. She kept her daughter far away from the Hollywood spotlight. No red carpets, no press runs, no flashing cameras chasing her childhood moments. As she entered her teenage years, she grew into almost a mirror image of her mother. Same eyes, same soft smile, and that same quiet strength people always noticed. But anytime her father's name came up, she would calmly change the subject and keep it moving. There was no drama, no public emotion, just distance. And Tom Cruise never spoke about her publicly again. Insiders said he continued paying for education and medical needs, but despite more than a decade passing, there were still no photos of them together. The man who could shut down streets for a movie premiere somehow couldn't rebuild the bridge to his youngest child. It felt like two worlds drifting farther apart, slowly floating to opposite ends of the universe. Then came a shift, a new chapter, a new name, and a quiet but powerful decision. By 2021, she wasn't just known as the child of famous parents anymore. She was carving out her own lane. She attended Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts, the legendary New York school that inspired the movie Fame. There, she sang, acted, directed short films, and began finding her own creative voice. But during her senior year musical, she made a choice that stopped people in their tracks. When the cast list for the Addams Family musical was released, something stood out immediately. Her name wasn't listed as Suri Cruz. It appeared as Suri Noel, using her mother's middle name. This wasn't just a stage name. It was a statement, a shift in identity, a clean step into her own world. And when she graduated in June 2024, that same name appeared boldly on the official program. No confusion, no going back. Katie Holmes was there in New York, sitting among other parents, clapping, smiling, and wiping away tears. Tom wasn't there. He was thousands of miles away, spotted at a Taylor Swift concert in London. For longtime fans who remembered the proud father from 2006, the contrast hit hard. One parent present, one absent, one chapter closing, another fully beginning. She guided her child without Hollywood armor and without a father beside them. Just strength, patience, and real love holding everything together. Later that summer, Suri headed to Carnegie Mellon University to study fashion, stepping into a future she chose for herself. Katie helped her move into the dorm like any regular parent, carrying boxes, lifting bags, no bodyguards, no flashing cameras, no spectacle. Just a mother and daughter creating a normal moment in a life that was never normal. That fall, Katie Holmes began directing a new film titled Happy Hours, reuniting with her former Dawson's Creek co-star Joshua Jackson. During filming in 2025, Suri visited the set, now 19, standing calm and confident in khaki pants, a white tank top, red sneakers, and a presence shaped by years of quiet strength. Most people didn't even recognize her. She moved differently, spoke softly, carried herself like someone fully in her own lane. The message was clear. She wasn't living as Tom Cruise's daughter anymore. She was Suri Noel! And her freedom was no longer a rumor. Then came a moment that stopped people cold across social media. In October 2025, she was spotted in New York, sitting on a doorstep with her head in her hands, looking drained and overwhelmed. Minutes later, Katie arrived in an Uber, sat beside her, and gently comforted her. They talked quietly. No cameras, no drama. Then they walked off together for pastries, unnoticed by most passers-by. It looked simple, but for those who knew their story, it was proof of how tightly they've held on to each other since everything changed. Now, 19, Suri is a college sophomore studying fashion, writing her own music, and figuring out who she wants to be. Her connection with Tom Cruise remains distant. He still covers education and health expenses, but they haven't been photographed together or spoken publicly in over a decade. Meanwhile, Tom continues reaching new heights, preparing for projects involving NASA and SpaceX, chasing boundaries beyond Earth itself. The man who conquered Hollywood now looks toward space. Yet the distance between him and his youngest child may be the one gap he can't close. People close to the family say Katie refuses to let bitterness win. She chooses gratitude, growth, and peace. She calls Suri an incredible person and says her greatest pride is watching her daughter's strength and independence bloom. Still, even with a new name and a new path, Suri carries a story shaped by love, pressure, and the quiet weight of growing up around fame. For 19 years, the world watched their lives unfold like a movie with missing pages, a legendary actor delivering unforgettable performances, and a daughter who stepped out of his shadow with quiet resolve. And now, as Suri Noel builds her own world, one question still hangs heavy in the air. Will she ever let her father back into her life? Or has the silence grown too deep to undo? Can time fix what distance created? Or are some divides just too wide to cross? Nah, drop your thoughts in the comments. If this story hit you, smash that like button. Subscribe to RumorFame for more real stories you won't hear anywhere else. Share this video, leave your take below, and we'll see you on the next one.